Welcome into Southeastern Oklahoma State signing day recap as we focus on Savage Storm football, talking with Coach Tyler Fenwick. Coach, I know the recruiting trail hard this year. First, let's begin with this being your first real recruiting class, just due to when you were hired a year ago. How important is this class to what you guys are planning on moving forward?
Well, I think it's more about we had a plan going into it, whereas last year it was kind of get in here and just find whatever we can find and try to put together a class without any kind of purpose. Last year's class was very good, but this year we were able to get through the season and kind of figure out what we needed. What we needed to address as far as position depth and things like that. And so being able to sit down as a staff and say, okay, how do we want to orchestrate our recruiting visits? What areas do we need to go hit? Where do we need to go? All that stuff. And then how many of each position do we need? And I think, with all that being said, I think that at the end of the day, looking at the class, I think we were able to fill those needs and we met our goal as far as the number of players and the quality of player that we got.
Of course, let's begin with the offensive side of the ball, and obviously one of the bigger needs coming into this recruiting season was offensive line. There are a variety of reasons. You had a couple graduate. Of course, you also last year had to move some guys from the defensive side to offensive side. Yeah,
we just didn't have a lot of youth and not a lot of competition. So they're just trying to create that depth and to create just the body sizes that we were looking for. We're looking for a little bit, not necessarily guys that are going to come in and, that are already 6'4", 295 pounds, but guys that we can develop through our weight program, with Coach Fears and grow them so that in the next couple of years when those guys are, ready to play, that, they've filled out and they're stronger and they understand what what the schemes are and what the terminology is and all that stuff, and so that we can have those guys for a few years and build some consistency.
9 signees on the offensive line, 3 JUCO. It's funny you said you not necessarily was looking for guys that were already 6'4", but you got one. You got a 6'4", 305-pounder in James Walker.
Yeah. Now that's a little bit different because it's a junior college training. That guy, we're asking him to come in and and compete right now and go through spring practice. So James Walker, 6'4", 305. He looks like $1 million. He's he can play tackle, he can play guard. There's a lot of things we can do with him. And so having him in here mid-year and going through our weight program right now and getting ready for spring practice is just invaluable.
Of course, you look down that list. We mentioned the 3 JUCO guys. One from just down the road from Hugo, Oklahoma.
Yeah, from Hugo went to NEO for 2 years, and it's having a guy that's just right here, family can come watch him play. He understands, the Oklahoma and where he's at, and he's another, good size kid that, and the nice thing about him is in high school he played tight end, he played guard, he's played center, he's got a frame where he could play tackle. So again, it's finding guys that, that can round out those 5 positions on the offensive line that we can kind of figure out what's going to fit best.
Of course, right there talking about Dylan Yandel, 6'3", 275-pounder. And then Daquan Montgomery from Navarro Junior College, another one of those East Texas guys. I noticed in looking at this list, there was a big mix of East Texas football as well as some Metroplex football. Guy from John Tyler High School, and a guy that you think can certainly add some competition to
he played center for them and is a teammate of James Walker. So those two kind of were a package deal in a sense, but he's 6'1", 315 pounds. He's athletic, and the fact that he can snap the football and so that'll that allows us again the freedom to do some things where Cecil was our center last year and he'll be back, and so maybe whether it's guard or center, just again trying to find the best combination that we can and with size and athleticism and strength that can play the position for us.
From the high school aspect, of course, you end up with 6 high school kids on this group. I always found this to be probably the most difficult job, is projecting out how these guys are going to turn out. Obviously, you have now a strength and conditioning coach in Zach Fears that brings a lot to the table, but just how much work, is there a science to it, I guess is where I'm going?
Eat. Get them to eat a lot of food and work out. I think that's the science. But when you look at this freshman class, they've all got good frames. They've all they're 6'2" to 6'4". They're, anywhere from 250 pounds to 285 pounds. You know what I mean? So it's just it's the frame that you're looking for. Obviously you're watching film and seeing how they can move and all that stuff. But it's I think when you look at all of their film together, they're physical, they're competitive. And they finish blocks, and I think that's something that we look for within that size frame, where they're going to be able to develop. And the guy that's 250 pounds in after an off season, all of a sudden that guy's 270 pounds, and then he's 280 pounds. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just and watch that development and the strengths of their maxes and things like that over the years is going to be fun to watch from a group standpoint.
Well, and a quick hit on those high school kids. Keeleon Chambers, Corsicana High School, 6'4", 270. Jerry Gore from Mansville Summit, 6'3", 270 as well. Trenton Jones from Crowley High School, 6'3", 280. Trace Tidwell from Henderson, Texas, a 6'3", 285 high school kid. Wesley Tidwell from just down the road in Paris, Texas, 6'3", 250. And Anthony Peak from Commerce High School at 6'3", 275. One more thing on the offensive line, because your scheme kind of calls for guys that can move a little bit on that offensive line. How important is it to, with what they're doing at the high school level? Obviously, it's not going to be as complex as what you're doing at the college level, but how important is it for it to kind of meld up with what you're already doing here?
Yeah, well, the nice thing is a lot of these guys are playing in the same kind of a style in a sense, and so they're all blocking zone principles, and they're all most of them are pass protecting, and so I think the carryover when they get here is really going to be more about adjusting to the speed of the game, the physicality of the game and all that stuff. But I think that they're all smart kids, and they understand football, and obviously with Coach Throckmorton as their coach, I mean, it's going to be a detailed-oriented meeting that they're going to have, and they're going to learn a lot of football. So I think they're they're in good hands with Coach Throck.
So moving on to the skill positions on the offensive side of the ball, quarterbacks, running backs. This year, only one quarterback signee. Obviously, had a couple of guys that were redshirted a year ago. But let's begin with quarterback Chris Hilton, McAllister High School. We were talking a moment ago about the importance of playing in a similar style. Knowing his coach there at McAllister, Forrest Mazie, he's been running that kind of style for a while. How really important is it, I guess, for the quarterback to have an idea of what you're wanting to accomplish? Yeah,
well, what we saw in Chris, I saw him play here on campus when they played Durant High School, and I saw him on film, but it's always different when you see in person. And he was taller than I thought. He's athletic, and I think the thing that really sold me on him is his competitiveness and his toughness. Played with a broken wrist, most of the season. It didn't slow him down. Their scheme, they ran him quite a bit, so he's a guy that can get out and do some things with his feet. And then I just, I like the way he throws the ball. He's got a strong arm. He plays baseball. And so there was just a lot of things that I think that, and he and I talked about, and along with his coach about, we're not asking you to come in and be the starter right now. We're asking you, to come in and develop and learn the system. And we've got some guys in the program, that obviously Hatley having 2 years left, and then some competition with the younger guys, and but be able to get your feet wet and then see what you can do. But I think he's got a lot of the intangibles that you're looking for as far as the extra stuff. I mean, it's always nice to have a guy that can, you're looking for a guy that can throw the football, but when things break down, or when you want to run the quarterback and get an extra guy, maybe, I think he's got those intangibles as well.
Of course, last year at 1,300 yards passing, 900 yards rushing as a quarterback, and combined for 25 total touchdowns. Moving to the running back, a position that you're fairly deep in right now, but obviously picked up some very good ones. Let's start in Red Oak, Texas, with 5'8", 210-pounder, and C.J. Palmer, a kid averaged 9 yards a carry on a team that went 11-2 last year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's and he's similar to the kid we signed last year in D, who we redshirted. But he's thick, he's strong, he's got good feet. And just a tough runner, and the fact that he comes from a program that had a really good year this year, and he kind of carried the load, and so pretty excited about what he's going to bring to the table, and see if the two Red Oak running backs can battle it out in the next couple of years.
Yeah, of course you also have one from Arlington Martin High School, and Chris Kraft.
Yeah,
didn't get to play a lot as a junior, played a lot as a senior, nearly 700 yards rushing at nearly 8 yards per carry.
Yeah,
a 5'10", 220-pound guy. Just kind of looking at the body size of these running backs, they're very similar. How does that fit your scheme, and particularly about Kraft? What do you like?
Yeah, well, I think both of them are all-purpose guys. I mean, they're guys that you can count on in protection with the size that they've got. And Chris is we saw Chris at a camp in the summer, and just his explosiveness, his strength. He's just really well put together, and they both are. But and I think he's going to fit in, with the scheme that we run with the, one-back stuff, and be able to get out and catch the ball, and he's going to, run the ball. That's why we recruited him. But I think in protection, he's also going to be a guy that can take on a linebacker because of his size.
Of course, you also have a state champion in that group, all listed as an athlete, KJ Hicks. He rushed for nearly 1,000 yards, had 15 rushing scores for Pleasant Grove High School out near Texarkana. Of course, I also noticed had a lot of stops on the defensive secondary as well.
Yeah.
For a guy like that, how important is it at this level to get guys like that in that can do a variety of things?
Right. No, I think that's one of the things that we looked for, in this class, and not just him, but there's a couple guys in this class. But he's a guy that can play either side of the ball, and so trying to get just really good athletes that know how to play football. He could be a running back. If we had depth issues at safety, he can play safety, and I think he's just an overall good athlete that can produce in a lot of different ways, and obviously special teams and return game, and he's physical and all that stuff. So really excited about what his career is going to look like for us.
Of course, right there, a look at the quarterbacks and running backs. Coming up, we move on into the receiving corps. Moving into the receiving corps, a total of 5 signees, 4 receivers, a tight end / athlete. We'll touch on that in a moment, but let's begin with the transfer in from Central Washington in San Bernardino Junior College, Brandon McDowell, a guy that had 560 yards receiving a year ago, averaged 16 yards a catch. Pretty big considering the fact that you graduated JUCO transfer and felt it natural.
Yeah, he's long. He's a guy that played some tight end also in the junior college. They kind of tightened him up, but I think he's a big target. I'm anxious. He's here now, in the program right now, going through the off-season program. Phenomenal leadership skills. I mean, he's a guy that you see him out there, and for a new guy stepping in, he's motivating and he's encouraging and all that stuff, which is really nice to see of a guy that doesn't really know anybody, and he's learning the guys. And so, but yeah, I mean, he's got a beautiful stride. I mean, he's long, and he gets out in the open and he accelerates, and so I think he's a guy that obviously with Hatch leaving and just trying to build that depth and try to figure out where he's. I don't know if he's going to play outside or he could maybe play in the slot as a big target in the slot, kind of like what he's used to. And so we'll see what he brings.
Of course, you obviously have a lot of depth coming back at that receiver thing. But the one thing that's a little bit unique is most of your receivers, especially in consideration of years past, one of the taller receiving corps Southeastern has had in a while. And
right.
then you factor in Sky Lowe goes down with injury, kind of eliminated that electric type receiver, somebody
right.
that can do something out of the backfield. You added a couple of those guys in Codis Martin from Mansville Lake Ridge and Christian Reggie from Lufkin High School. And of course, Lufkin always one of those really top-notch Texas schools.
Yeah, both those kids are they have big-time speed, and I think that's one of the things that, like you're saying, we had length, but we didn't have. With Sky going down, we didn't really have that guy that could just make guys miss and just kind of make you look like a really good coach and just go score touchdowns from anywhere on the field. And and our receiving corps last year was phenomenal. They did a great job, but it's nice to kind of have a mixture of those different types of athletes. And so Sky will be a senior this year, and so we needed to get a couple of those receiver type that are just flat out fast, and speed, and guys that can go score and run by people. So thought we answered the bell there.
Of course, Reggie, 13 yards per catch, had 825 yards receiving, to go along with 6 touchdowns. Martin, what is it you really like about him? He didn't have a lot of catches, but I understand a terrific route runner.
He's an unbelievable route runner. I mean, he almost looks like he's been in a college program. He gets in and out of breaks. He runs real crisp routes, and then he can get behind the defense as well. So, I don't know if he was. There wasn't a whole lot of. I think he was kind of hidden, because of his numbers, and just when he shows up on film. I mean, you look at him on film, and you're like, man, this guy just makes. He gets the ball and he makes plays and he produces.
Another one of those guys, kind of like we were talking about in the running backs a moment ago. You got Matthew Nunez now. He's listed as a tight end, but he's one of those guys that could possibly. Because you and I had this conversation a year ago. Your offense doesn't use tight ends a lot, but there's opportunity for this guy either on the offense or defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we'll use a tight end when we have a tight end that can do the things that we're asking a tight end to do. For us, a tight end's got to be able to block, and he's got to be able to get vertical in the passing game. And last year we had guys that were more blocking tight ends, especially when Roncis went down. So. Nunez is a guy that he's got a good frame. That I think he's got the shoulders and the broadness where he's going to fill out, and he's going to put on weight. And honestly, when you watch his film, I mean, he kind of does everything. His high school film, he's everywhere on the field. He just, in fact, Coach Johnson recruited him, and he called me right after he visited with this kid, and he goes, we got to take this kid. He's like, I don't know what he is. He's just an unbelievable football player. He just does it all. And, on offense, he finds his way in the end zone. And on defense, he runs around and makes tackles. And it's just, you can't get enough of those guys in your program, and just kind of see where the chips fall and see where they fit.
Of course, coming up, we'll move over to the defensive side of the ball. Quick glance at the receiving corps recruits on our signing day recap. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball with defensive line and linebackers. And much like the offensive line, you needed to add some depth to the defensive line this year. And you did a good job of that in addressing that. 5 signees, including a JUCO transfer from Garden City Community College, and Javian Gardner. Yeah,
Javian Gardner, that was the one Coach Johnson drove all the way up to Garden City to go find him. But I think one of the things that stood out with him is the fact that he's a big body. He's 260 pounds. He's athletic. On his film, when you watch his film, he drops into coverage, which is something that we didn't really have. He can play that 4 technique, and he can slant and move and things like that. So, excited. His brother actually plays at West Florida, who won the national championship. We thought we were going to lose him to them, but I think he wanted to stay out this way, and I think built a really good relationship with Coach Johnson, and so excited to have him coming in and just add him to the defensive line. Lost a couple guys with Torres and some of those, so just needed to kind of get some experience there. We got some really good young guys that we redshirted this past year, and I think we got some good ones that were coming in this class.
Well, speaking of which, from the high school standpoint, you had 4 on the defensive line, and maybe one that may turn out to be a linebacker. We'll touch on that first. You have Alex Reeder from Arlington High School, Joshua Horlick from Richardson Pierce High School, to Derek Dunn from Cedar Hill. That Cedar Hill connection kind of staying in place. Southeastern's done a great job of getting with that school. And then also Jaden Allen from Rockwall Heath. And let's begin with Jaden, because he's a guy that you look at can do pretty much anything on the defensive side of the ball. I know you guys are looking at it from a defensive line standpoint, but could possibly move to outside linebacker.
Yeah, he's he's probably 6'3", 6'4". He's 225 pounds, maybe a little bit more than that. And the funny thing about him is we almost didn't go on him, because his high school film he played nose, and it was kind of, they didn't have a guy, and so he said, I'll do it. And so when you kind of get the backstory and all that stuff, you go, gosh, that's a guy that he'll do anything, to win, to help his team. And so, he can be that 4 technique, 5 technique pass rush guy, and then, depending on how he develops, I mean, he's got the length and athleticism where maybe we can get him out, and cover, into coverage. And, so it'll be, again, the development thing, and kind of see how it unfolds. But I think that it's a really good group of, Derek is a big 265 pounds. He's got a big frame. He's going to continue to grow, and Reeder's kind of the same way. I mean, it's just, guys that can play nose, they can play 4 technique, they're versatile.
Well, and for the design of your defense, how important is it on that front 3 in particular to have big guys that can plug holes and allow the linebackers to run?
Yes, no doubt, because those guys for us are, they've got to be physical. They got to be able to run through tackles and eat up blocks, so that guys like Swope and Jared Bell, those guys can go and make tackles and free them up. And then we've also got to be, they've got to be quick enough where they can get into, slant into a gap and do some stunts and things like that too. So it's a unique athlete that we have to find on that front.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Jared Bell, and we talked a little bit about guys that can do multiple things. Bell initially out of Raleigh East High School was a defensive end. Now he's playing outside linebacker at this level. So again, you got to find the bodies and then kind of make them fit. And it's not always where they played in high school.
Well, and that's what we like about the 3-4 is that, you're able to get really good football players, and then maybe it's a safety that bulks up and you play him at outside linebacker, or maybe it's a it's a linebacker that bulks up and you move him down to 4 technique, or bring him off the edge. And Jared Bell was kind of the opposite, where he had to play. He played kind of a rush defensive end in their scheme that they the previous staff, and so we moved him to more of an inside linebacker, and because he's built for it.
Of course, speaking of linebackers, you had 3 won a transfer, 2 high school kids. Let's start with the transfer from Mary Hardin Baylor. Obviously, very good D3 program. Caleb High from Waxahachie, Texas.
Explosive kid. He's got like a 40-inch vertical, and he's 220 pounds. Film was good. He came up here for a game day visit. He's one of those guys when you watch his film, he tackles, and it's like there's like an explosion that goes along with it. So excited about him, and tried to get him up here mid-year and some transfer stuff, and so he'll be ready to go. And but he looks like $1 million, and add some depth, at that inside linebacker position, which we didn't really have this last year. I mean, we ended up playing a lot of young guys at the linebacker spot, and so we'll have Jared Bell will be a senior next year, and so good addition for us.
Well, and then from the high school side, Elijah Deering from Crowley High School, as well as Devin Womack from Rivercrest High School. Deering, 270 tackles in 22 games.
Yeah, he's plays outside linebacker. He's got good length. can do a lot of things, coming off the edge, dropping into coverage. So I think he's a very good athlete. Very good athlete.
And you mentioned the importance of adding depth. Last year, Swope goes down. He's one of the top tacklers in the league in the Great American Conference. He goes down, and as well as Malik Hall, a couple of others like that. That being a very physical position, you need as much depth there as possible.
Yes, no doubt. I mean, we went in through when Swope goes down, it's we had to play a bunch of redshirt freshmen that are going to be very good. I mean, all that experience that they gained this season is invaluable. And so they'll be that much better, and they'll understand the scheme and kind of the position and all that stuff in our defense. And but you just when you play with 4 linebackers. You got to have that depth, and you got to be able to take those guys and put them wherever you can get your best 11 guys on the field.
Of course, there's a look at the front 7 recruiting class coming up. We'll take a look at the secondary signees. Moving on to the secondary signees, 9 signees in the defensive backfield for you guys. Obviously, much like the receiving corps, you've got a young secondary, but always important to look for more depth, more competition at the position. And one of the guys you got was a guy that was here transferring in back from Youngstown State, Shane Dixon. Talk a little bit about what he may provide.
It's amazing that they say there's no there's no science behind recruiting. We traveled all over looking for safeties, junior college transfer safeties, and all this stuff, and and all of a sudden Shane Dixon, this guy walks into my office, and he's 6'3", 200 pounds, looks like $1 million, big old smile on his face, and he gives me his whole story, and I'm thinking, man, we've been traveling all over the place, and I didn't really have to go anywhere. I just kind of sit here and let the guy come to my door. But so he's enrolled in school, and he's in the program right now, and the fact that he's familiar with Southeastern, went to IMG Academy out of high school, and went to Youngstown State, and so he's got some experience, and he's got some knowledge of football knowledge. He's been around some good coaches, and but just a great attitude. He's coming in here and really took on a leadership role, and so excited to get him. I mean, our safety position. I mean, basically we had Malumba and Jay Free that pretty much played probably 95% of the snaps this year, and KB came in and played some nickel stuff, but just from the depth and the experience we had at safety was so thin. And we ask our safeties to make they make a bunch of tackles, and you're just going, man, just don't get hurt.
And considering the fact that the group prior graduated,
right?
So you really had an inexperienced group that I thought performed well.
They did.
And now you're adding in this, and of course defensive backs. This is your largest group signing. We'll touch on that in a moment. But the high school kids, another local product, Hugo, Oklahoma, Jordan Barker, as well as Caden Carter from Hebron High School down in the Carrollton area, a kid from North Lamar High School, and Kobe Imiyabi. We want to make sure I get that right before football season starts. Joseph Jones from Robert E. Lee High School, but that actually Baytown, Texas, not John Tyler area there, or Tyler, Texas. Austin Reneker from Durant, and then Jalen Shaw just down the road at McKinney Boyd High School. Caleb Tobias from Arlington High School, and then Travion Williams from Dibble High School. You got a lot of bodies there. All of them, a couple of them I've actually seen. For example, a guy like Jalen Shaw, saw him in high school, really good man defender. In today's day and age of college football, with the importance of the passing game, the spread, how important is it to have depth, have bodies, just to keep guys fresh?
No doubt. It's just you get into those situations where, they're running up and down the field, and you got to be able to roll guys and get guys in. And I think just where we were at, like I said, same thing with the safety position. I mean, our two corners, last year played a lot of snaps, and so just building the depth that those guys, all those guys, the corners, they're 5'10" to.
About to say they're all
they're all
5'10" to
yeah
6'2". I mean,
yeah, so that was that's something that's nice. They've got long arms, and they got good feet, and so I think we really did a good job, building up that depth at this in the secondary. When you have a guy that's a 5'8" corner, they get picked on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody kind of goes after that guy. And I've had some guys, that were 5'5", 5'6" corners that have been phenomenal corners. But just for whatever reason, we hit it on the head with this position.
And much like in other positions, another one of those do-it-all guys on this list, and Kobe Imayabi, guy who played a quarterback, a running back, slot, even played safety. I know you got him listed as a defensive player, but obviously a lot of things can change. A 5'10", 165 kid.
He's a football player. He played everything. He's productive. He could end up playing slot for us. He could end up being a safety, a corner. He'll play in a bunch of special teams. He'll just be a guy that's just a tough, get it done, accountable, to getting the job done for you, that you can rely on.
Of course, a quick look there at the 9 defensive secondary members of the signing class here in 2020. Coming up, we take a look at special teams. Time now to focus in on special teams, and maybe we have to a degree already. You got to think some of those receivers and whatnot maybe in the return game, but specifically looking at kicker and punter, something that was problematic last year. Obviously, I mean, the school graduates an all-decade performer in Joel Carlos, and then your kicker goes, or punter goes down to injury, second, third game of the season.
Right.
Obviously, you need to find a leg out there, and you found 2. You found one in your backyard, a kicker from here in Durant and Zach White, and then a punter down the road in Wiley with Jackson Nally.
Yeah, Zach is obviously a local kid. Wanted to see if we can keep local talent, and he's when I watched him kick, and when you watch him on film, he's very accurate, and I think that was something that was important. He's got great height on the ball. He's a soccer player, and he's been a soccer player his whole life, and just fell in love with kicking, and does a really good job at it. And probably didn't. His film he didn't have a lot of opportunities from distance and all that stuff, but you watch his kickoffs, and he can kick it off into the end zone. And when you get a guy like that in here as a freshman, and you get him into our weight program, it's just going to continue to get stronger, and the leg gets stronger. And so I think the hardest thing is the height. Making sure you got a guy that can get height on the ball, and then the accuracy, and the strength will come.
Of course, then on the punting side, Jackson Nally, and again, that was one of the things that injury early last year. That was something that kind of hamstrung your special teams unit all year. Yeah,
I'll tell you what. I mean, it's finding a punter these days is very difficult. There's just not a lot of them out there anymore, and I don't know if that's just because the high schools they find their best athlete, and they put them back there and rugby and say go run it or whatever if it's there. But there's not a lot of punters out there, and so for us to nail that down and get Jackson to commit to us, and it's valuable. He's got good height, which also helps with the long snapping, and if there's a little if the snap's high, you got some guy that can get it, and and then he works at it. You can just tell it's a craft. I mean, it's something that it's like playing golf. You just try to get that perfect swing all the time, and so he works at it. And I think the thing that was that you don't always see in the statistics, you kind of got to look for it, but he does a great job of pinning, and the down at punts and the coffin corner punts that gets them down inside the 10, and he's pretty consistent at that. So that's a huge field position advantage if you can get a guy that can do that.
Of course, again, talking with Coach Tyler Fenwick as we recap the 2020 signing class, and just kind of ended on this. I mean, the big thing that I get from this is, one, obviously this being your first class, it's all about building foundation, but ultimately you want football players. There's a lot of guys on here that may have signed as this or that, but at the end of the day, what they signed under, they may be something else, just so long as they're good, high football IQ guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think when you really break it down, you look at whether you're going to take this, well, what does he play, and and when it comes down to it, it's like, man, this guy's a football player, and we're going to find a way to get the best football players on the field somehow. And so, if it's a guy, like Hicks that is, is a running back, but he also can play, then we'll find a place for him. It's just a matter of getting those guys on the field. And so I think that, there's always going to be guys like that in our signing classes.
Of course, I know you can't wait to get the spring season underway and then on into fall camp. Coach Tyler Fenwick, as you've been watching our 2020 signing day recap on GoSoutheastern.com.